Have you ever wanted to be someone who is unshakable? Someone who doesn't care about criticism, rejections, losses, or betrayals? Have you ever dreamed of the day when you will finally stop feeling this silent pain, this anguish that consumes you inside, even when you pretend to be right on the outside? Perhaps you are tired of trying to please everyone, to maintain an image that requires strength all the time, when in reality everything you wanted was to rest, just for a moment. The pressure of being untouchable. But let me tell you something that maybe no one had the courage to speak. As long as you try to avoid pain, it will continue to control you. As long as you try to anesthetize yourself, protect yourself, hide, you will remain hostage to everything that happens around you. From the words that hurt you, the actions that disappoint you, the silences that kill you inside. And this is not weakness. This is the reality of most people. The difference is that some pretend better than others. Waldo Emerson, one of the greatest thinkers about self-sufficiency, said we are not what happens to us, but what we choose to become. And that's where the key is. It is not about shielding the world. It is not about becoming cold, indifferent, or untouchable. It is about integrating. It is about bringing to light everything that currently affects you in darkness. Because true strength is not the absence of pain, but the full awareness of who you are, even when it is bleeding. If you got here, it was no coincidence. This video is for you who is tired of getting hurt with everything and everyone. It is for you who feels that you are always at emotional disadvantage, as if other people have a power over you you don't understand. I want to show you that it doesn't have to be so. But for that, you will have to face some truths that can hurt. And perhaps, for the first time, this pain sets you free. Let's start. You believe that what hurts you is out there, in the actions of others, in the poorly chosen words, in the abandonment you suffered, in the betrayals you did not expect. But the truth is brutal. None of this really has the power to hurt you unless there is an open wound inside you. What hurts you is not what others do to you. This is what these experiences activate within you. It's the story you tell yourself about it. It is the ancient trauma that has never been worked. It is the emptiness that you disguise hard, proudly, with this desperate need to look well-adjusted. Emerson shows us that the pain we feel before the outer world is just a reflection of what has not yet been integrated into our inner world. This is why some people can go through devastating situations and still maintain clarity while others collapse in the face of a simple comment. This is not what happens, it is where it hits you. And here comes an uncomfortable truth. You still suffer so much because, at some level, you believe you can control how the world should treat you. You are still trying to be good enough, intelligent enough, strong enough, understanding enough, as if you said no one would hurt you. But control is an illusion. And as long as you cling to him, you will live in constant tension, trying to predict the unpredictable, trying to avoid the inevitable. Want to stop suffering? Then stop protecting yourself from suffering. What you need is no longer control, but more awareness. As long as you believe people need to change to stop feeling pain, they will remain enslaved by others' actions. Your freedom begins the moment you understand that everything that comes from outside has only to find yourself echo within you. And that's exactly where the true battlefield is, the unconscious. What you do not see, do not understand, and do not dominate, dominates you. And that is what we will explore in the next part. Get ready to dive a deeper level, because that's where the true transformation begins. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. The biggest lie that told you is that you are in control of your life. Wake up, because it is not. At least, not while continuing to live on autopilot, reacting without knowing why, feeling without understanding where it comes from, making decisions that then boats. Emerson made this clear when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, he will direct your life, and you will call it destination." And that's exactly what is happening to you now. The pain you feel, the anger that explodes out of nowhere, the sadness that invades you without explanation, none of this is random. These are messages from their parts that were forgotten, ignored, repressed. Emerson referred to this dark territory as the self, not examined. And it is not just a cloud of vacant thoughts. It is an active force, a whole system of memories, trauma, desires, and fears that you do not want to face, but still deciding what you feel and how it acts. Do you wonder why certain words destroy you while other people don't even care? Because these words play sensitive points within you that are still alive. And if they are alive, it's because you never confronted them, just pushed them under the psychological carpet, and now continues to stumble on them. Emerson said, "We cannot change anything until we accept the condemnation does not release, oppresses." And what have you been doing? Judging, repressing, silenced, as if that were going to solve something. The truth is that the unconscious does not disappear just because you ignore it. It only finds more dangerous ways to manifest. In toxic relationships you repeat, in self-sabotage standards that cannot break, in anxieties and fears that come up when everything seems to be doing well. This is not unlucky. It is your unconscious trying to awaken you, but you insist on sleeping. Want to be someone who doesn't get hurt anymore. So stop fleeing what is inside you, because until you know you're unconscious, it will be a puppet of your emotions. And the more trying to protect yourself from external pain, the more vulnerable it will be in internal pain. But there is a way out, and it is not defending itself. It is integrating, because becoming untouchable is not an act of resistance. It is an act of deep knowledge. This is what we will see below, which truly means being someone who is unshakable, and why this force does not come from armor but from acceptance. Let's continue. Most people believe the only way to avoid getting hurt is closing. They build walls, create masks, develop emotional armor, and pretend that nothing affects them. They say, "I don't care anymore. I'm little sanding myself. Nothing hits me." But inside they keep bleeding, still corroded, because the problem never felt. The problem is not knowing what you are feeling and why, and that only happens to those who don't know each other yet. Emerson was needed when he said, "Know all theories, master all techniques, but by touching a human soul, be just another human soul." And this human soul that you insist on hiding behind a strong, invulnerable, controlled character is shouting to be seen. Becoming emotionally strong has nothing to do with being cold. It has nothing to do with ignoring the pain, avoiding conflicts, or pretending not to call. It has to do with integrating, accepting, with bringing to light everything you buried in the dark. You do not become untouchable by creating a barrier between you and the world. You become untouchable when you realize that no one can touch what has already been embraced inside you. When you integrate your shadows, your fears, your flaws, your insecurities, to react to everything, you observe, you choose. It's no longer an emotional puppet, and that is true freedom. Emerson called this self-confidence, the process of becoming who you really are. Not what others expect from you, not what you thought should be to be accepted, but what emerges from within. From the meeting between light and shadow, between ego and unconscious. Self-confidence is not a process of perfection, Emerson said, but of integration. You don't have to become a better person. You just need to become whole. And here is the secret that no one told you. The more you run away from pain, the more she pursues you. The more you try not to be affected, the more fragile it gets. But when you face your own wounds, when you accept who you are with everything that has beautiful and ugly, noble and shameful, nothing out there has the power to dismantle you. But this path requires courage. Courage to look inside. Courage to abandon the masks. Courage to feel, because it is precisely in pain that the key of transformation is hidden. And that's what we'll find out in the next part. Since suffering, far from being an enemy, can become the gateway to its true strength, let's dive deeper. And this time, without fear, you have learned to hate pain from a young age. They have taught you that suffering is a sign of weakness, that crying is a waste of time, that feeling too much makes you vulnerable. And then you started to run away, to avoid, to deny it. But the more you run away from suffering, the more it pursues you. And the worst, it changes shape. It disguises an anxiety, anger, apathy, boredom, self-destructive impulses. You don't even understand where they come from. The ignored pain does not disappear, only digs tunnels inside you, until one day, without warning, everything collapses. Emerson saw suffering completely differently. He believed that the pain was the messenger of the soul, the unconscious alarm, the language that the self, what you are in its entirety, uses to draw your attention. He said, "Sadness is like a black lady. If it appears, don't push it away. Invite her to sit, offer a coffee, and listen to what she has to say. But you don't listen. If you silence, get distracted, remain busy. If anesthesia, it does everything to avoid looking at what really matters." If you are recognizing these standards in your life, write here in the comments, "Awaken." Let's create a community of people who are ready for this journey of self-knowledge. What is this pain trying to show you? The truth is that suffering only hurts so much because you are still at war with yourself. There is still a part of you wanting to grow, and another part wanting to keep everything as it is. There is something inside you that screams by transformation, but your ego, used to control, tries to stifle this call. And it is in this friction that pain is born, because change hurts. Growth hurts. Release old beliefs, cut toxic ties, allow what no longer serves you. All this is mourning, an internal process of death and rebirth. But it is exactly in this ruined space that something new can be born. Because when everything in you deconstructs, when certainties crumble, when the pain numbs your vulnerability, you can finally see who it really is, without the protective layers, without performance, without the mask. And at this exact point, suffering becomes sacred, because it brings you on your knees before the only thing that can set you free, yourself. Emerson knew that. He understood that suffering is not a system failure. It is part of the process. Pain is not the end of the road. It is the beginning of the journey towards self-confidence. The problem is that most people give up before crossing this dark valley. It runs away, is distracted, returns to the surface. But you don't. If it has come here, it is because it is ready to cross. And in the next part we will understand how this crossing process happens. As the path of self-confidence, however lonely and brutal as it may seem, is what finally frees you. Let's continue. It's getting deeper now. Few people have the courage to start the journey of true self-confidence, and even less have the courage to complete it. Because this path does not promise comfort. It offers no guarantees. It does not protect your ego. He destroys him. Emerson referred to self-confidence as a process of becoming who you are. But it means, above all, to unlearn what you think is. And that hurts more than any external rejection, because you begin to realize that much of what you defined so far was illusion. You are not your achievements. They are not your trauma. It is not the image that built to be loved, respected, or admired. This is all what you created to survive. But surviving is not living, and self-confidence is the call of life beyond survival. This is when the unconscious begins to push to the surface everything that has been repressed, hidden, distorted. Self-confidence requires the dissolution of the persona, wrote Emerson, as it is just a mask of collective convenience. In other words, you will need to tear your own skin to find out what's underneath. It is in this process that you begin to become untouchable. Not because nothing more affects you, but because you have been through fire, faced his monsters. He looked in the eyes of his shame, his lack, his anger, and said, "I see you, and you don't control me anymore." It is this internal clarity, this lucidity in the face of the darkness, that gives you a force that does not depend on approval, recognition, or control. You no longer need to be loved by everyone. You no longer need to win all discussions. You don't have to look strong anymore, because you know who it is, and no one can get it out of you. True emotional armor is not a carapace. It is a core. It is the integration of all its parts into a center of consciousness that remains unshakable in the face of storms. You may feel pain, but it doesn't break you. It may be injured, but it is not lost, because it stopped being reactive and became whole. He stopped living on the surface and began to inhabit the depths. However, this depth has a price: loneliness. Not because it will be alone, but because few people can accompany you on this journey. Most are still attached to the surface, in the masks, the fear of feeling, and when you start to break free, you inevitably distance yourself. But this distance is not rejection. It is maturation. You do not distance yourself out of pride. It distances itself because it no longer fits where it was hidden before. And that brings us to the end of this journey. Consciousness as a shield, because it is not the force that protects you. It is clarity. This is what we will discuss in the last part. Awareness as the only state in which nothing, absolutely nothing, has more power over you. Let's finish this crossing together. We are almost there. Now that you have come here, there is something that needs to be said very clearly. Nothing, absolutely nothing, will shield you from external suffering if you remain unconscious of what happens within you. The words will continue to hurt. The rejections will continue to burning. The losses will continue to knock you down until you wake up. An awakening is not a magical event. It is a daily choice. It is looking inside even when it hurts. It is taking responsibility for everything you feel, without blaming others, the past or fate. Emerson said, "What you resist, persists. What you accept, transforms." You spent a lifetime resisting the fear of not being enough, to the emptiness of rejection, the pain of loneliness, the anguish of not feeling seen. But what did you do with it? Hid, silenced, tried to control everything. Tried to be perfect, tried to be strong. And all this brought you here, exhausted, tired of fighting the world and yourself. But now you know, true emotional immunity is not hardness. It is clarity. It is not about creating armor. It is about expanding your consciousness. Because when you understand your triggers, your patterns, your wounds, the actions of others lose the power to destroy you. You still feel, but don't drown. It still suffers, but is not lost. And that changes everything. What is shielding you is not protecting yourself from life. It is diving deep into it. Those who live on the surface are injured with any wave. Those who dive know that below there is silence, stability, and power. And that's where you're going. And when it starts to live on this place of integration, presence, acceptance, the world may even try to knock you down, but you can find no more. Subscribe to the channel. Save this video to review for the next 7 days because you will need to remember these truths, and share it with someone who is also on this journey. Don't forget, the next video is also part of this journey. It is important. You need to continue. True transformation only begins when you don't stop in the first step. I see you there.